Hi everyone, welcome back to AMG 101. I'm Peyton.
I'm Cam.
It's been a while since our last podcast episode, so we're going to have to go back and we're just going to recap a little bit of the end of Season 7, the off season, getting us ready for AMG Season 8, which is here currently, Week 1. So, starting off, let's talk about that playoffs, the Super Bowl from last year, and that was the Colts versus the Rams, ultimately with the Colts winning that, and I called the Rams to be in there. I've said it before. I'm a huge believer in Keith Turner, and he did enough to get the Rams there. They couldn't quite pull out the win. And my personal opinion is that, it wasn't his fault in that game. The Colts controlled the ball the whole game, because the Rams barely even had the ball on offense, and I don't blame Keith Turner. I know Cam does. Cam is Keith Turner hates.
I'll get into that once you're done talking.
But I think Keith did a great job in the postseason, getting him to that game. I kind of think the defense let him down because Jonathan Taylor just a menace. He ran all over them. Jordan Love took care of the ball, and that's what led the Colts to victory. But let's hear your thoughts on Keith Turner, Cam.
All right, so I know you said that there were some things that happened, outside of his control or whatnot, but I mean, dude, if you're completing 50% of your passes, you only put up 137 yards. You don't even throw a touchdown in the game, and you turn over the ball twice. I mean, I don't care what's going on with your team, whatever the case is, blame it on them. It doesn't matter. 10 for 19, 137 yards, 2 interceptions. You're not helping your team out at all. Like, you're not, putting your team in a position to win that game. Because I know it was close. It was closer early on. And, he just really didn't put his team in a position to win that game.
I think the interceptions, they were in positions where they needed to score. He had to force something, and it didn't work out in his favor. I don't necessarily even blame those interceptions on him. I mean, he just had to try to make a play on those late in the game when he's running out of options, and it ended up getting to be a turnover. So I don't necessarily put that blame on Keith Turner, in my opinion. But we know Cam's a Keith Turner hater, so we'll just leave it at that.
I also want to say this, though. You really got to give props to that Colts defense. They played lights out all season, and then here they are showing up in the Super Bowl against a pretty good offense, considering. But yeah.
They got Cooper Kupp and Cam Akers, so
Exactly.
definitely a pretty good offense. So congratulations to the Colts on that win. I think me and Cam were we were a season early on our prediction because I think we both had them winning the Super Bowl last year. So maybe we'll get it right this year. Anyway, moving on to some off-season news, and I got to be honest with you, it wasn't a huge free agency. There was a couple big names out there: Aaron Jones, White Teller, Chris Jones, Byron Jones,
Tyreek Hill.
Tyreek Hill wasn't a free agent, but we'll talk about what happened with him. But I was kind of shocked at the amount of money that was thrown on these offensive linemen. How do you feel about that, Cam?
I mean, these guys aren't young, correct? And
no,
they're getting paid. Wyatt Teller, signed by the New York Jets. Yes. 5 years, $152 million.
I mean, that's a quarterback contract.
That is just outrageous. Like, what? I don't value linemen that much. I feel like, a solid quarterback should be making that money. But this guy, at this age too, and then Tyron Smith, 5 years, $121 million. Man, some of these teams just really value, I guess, offensive linemen.
I mean,
ones at that.
I mean, the question really is for the Jets now, especially with that huge signing of Wyatt Teller. Are they going to be able to re-sign Zach Wilson this offseason? Because you got to think that's priority number one. He's had some pretty good. He's gotten better over the course of the last 3 seasons, and he's coming up on getting out of his rookie contract and his first actual contract with the Jets. Are they going to be able to afford to re-sign him? I know there's been talk already this season of Zach Wilson being on the trade block, and you got to think it's because they spent this money in the offseason, and now they're realizing they don't have enough money to re-sign him, and they definitely don't want to just let him go into free agency because then you don't get nothing. He's gone. But I mean, If you look at their offensive line, it is a great offensive line. Don't get me wrong, but
And
we're
then you have to think
talking.
about the emergence of Emmett Wynn from last year. Dude
Yeah.
had a great season, and then they add this guy at O-line. I mean, yeah, I feel like it's a solid move, but for that amount, I don't know. Like you said, Zach Wilson probably not going to be able to resign him.
Well, see, and the thing with the Jets is their offensive line contracts are already gigantic. I mean, they've gotten $70 million on Tristan Wirfs, now $150 million on Teller, and $80 million on Becton. I mean, they've got a lot of money locked up in that offensive line, and which is a good thing. They have a great offensive line to protect Zach Wilson and Emmett Wynn. But then when that's going to be the big question is if they're going to be able to re-sign Zach Wilson. You definitely don't want to lose him, I would say.
Yeah.
And then the Bucks also signed Tyron Smith for 120 million, and he's a little bit even older than Wyatt Teller. I mean, that I feel like it's not as not that Wyatt Teller was a bad signing, but not as a bad a position for them because Daniel Singh still has 3 years left on his rookie contract. They have a little more time to figure it out with Singh to get his re-sign, but the Jets worry me with Zach Wilson. I will say that. Let's move on to the draft and a little bit of free agency, and that's the Texans. They made some interesting moves that I don't know what the necessarily thought process was behind it. I guess we'll see it play out over the year, but that was they first off signed Tom Brady in free agent, the 47-year-old Tom Brady,
Yep.
to a $26 million deal for 1 year.
1 year.
Then they also signed Drew Lock in free agency for 3 years, and then they draft a quarterback in the first round and the second round. So not one quarterback, but 2 quarterbacks in the draft. So right now, 4 quarterbacks on the roster in week 1. And none of them are really in a position to be released or any of that. So these guys are probably staying on the roster. I got to be honest with you. I'm kind of shocked at just the decision making here. I don't know what the really thought process is. Cam, what do you think is going on in Houston?
I mean, I love Tom Brady, so I saw that signing and I was like, okay, this is great. Like this is gonna work out for Houston. And then they also get Drew Lock, and then they draft 2 quarterbacks back to back. I mean, you could have got a starter in the second round at a different position, but you chose to pick a potential backup. I don't know. Something's going wrong there in Houston. That's all I'm saying.
And they definitely have some holes that needed to be filled in this draft. So it's not like they could take these shots at quarterback and they didn't need anything else.
What they needed to do, this is what they needed to do. Okay, Tom Brady, that's a solid signing. And then you draft one quarterback, not 2, and then either, have him learn from Brady or, I mean, just go with 2. You don't need 4, man.
Yeah, I maybe not sign Drew Lock either. That probably wasn't needed.
Yeah.
But you know what's crazy about the whole thing is the second round guy is the starter in Houston in week 1. So not Tom Brady, not Drew Lock, not the first round guy. The second round is the starter in Houston. So that is definitely an interesting thing to look at in that front office and wonder what's going on. Anyway, we'll move on to a shocking trade that I quite literally, my jaw dropped when first of all, just hearing that Tyreek Hill was on the block. I was like, no shot. There's no way they're going to actually get rid of this guy. And then they did. I can't say I agree with the move. I feel like Tyreek Hill is that playmaker that you have to have on your offense.
He's untouchable. He's an untouchable player.
He's that guy that when you're late in the game and you need a miracle, he's going to be who you look for.
Exactly. You throw a beat to that man.
Yeah, and he's gone now. So I mean, they definitely got some great pieces in return to shore up that defense. I mean, they got Marlon Humphrey, Jabril Peppers, and Bill McConnell, which are all great defensive players. But man, it's going to be rough replacing that offensive firepower that Tyreek Hill brings.
Right.
And on the other side of it, the Ravens, that offense is scary.
Scary fast.
Yeah, scary fast. Tyreek Hill, Marquise Brown, and Lamar Jackson is just a wild, just 3 players to have on your team. I mean, you could take this team out to the track and just have races, and that would be enough entertainment in itself. Like, I mean, it is insane what the Ravens have at speed on their entire team. Who do you think, in your opinion, wins this trade long term? Is this a win for the Ravens getting Tyreek Hill, or is the win for the Chiefs getting those 3 defensive players?
I don't care who else was in the trade. I don't care who the Ravens gave the Chiefs. It's the fact that the Ravens got Tyreek Hill. This dude is like a generational talent. Like, you're probably not going to see another player like him ever. I didn't understand the trade. I mean, good for Baltimore, because they're going to be deadly this year. For sure.
I will say the Ravens definitely need to re-sign Tyreek Hill because he's on that franchise tag. So as long as they re-sign him, it is a great trade. And I will say, I mean, the Chiefs definitely got their worth. Marlon Humphrey's got 3 years left on his deal. Jabril Peppers got 2, and McConnell's got 2. So they've got them locked up for a few years at least, not having to worry about re-signing anyone. So, I mean, as far as trading, I think they got the best package they could have gotten, but it's still just Tyreek Hill, and it's hard for me to justify trading that man.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to, let's just talk about a little bit of the beginning of season 8 of AMG in week 1. We've had some games happen. And let's start off with that game that happened in New York. That was quite the shocker.
Yeah.
37-0, and the benching of Ben Vaughn.
For Derek Carr.
Derek Carr, yeah. So not the young guy coming in. They brought in the veteran Derek Carr, who they signed. And what do you think? Is the tenure of Ben Vaughn coming to an end in Washington? What do you think, Cam?
I know Ben Vaughn. I mean, he had a solid rookie year, did he not? He threw for over 50 touchdowns.
He did have
a lot of turnovers. We know that. But do I think this is gonna, like, do I think he's permanently gonna be benched? No. I think I mean, the game was over. They figured, why not? Let's throw Derek Carr in there. But long term, I think Ben Vaughn is still gonna be the guy. Yeah, I don't think his tenure's done.
I think with Ben Vaughn, I think we know the skills are there. He can definitely make plays. He can throw touchdowns. But I think everyone assumed that rookie year, he had his turnovers, but those are going to clear up. And right now they're not. 4 picks and a fumble that was taken back for 6. Like, that can't happen in your 3rd year in the league. You've got to be learning and knowing what passes you can make and what passes you can't in the NFL and AMG. And he's really struggling, and I gotta wonder if they're thinking about moving on. He's getting to the end of his rookie year or rookie deal soon, and Washington's got to be thinking about what their options are. Do they trade him in the offseason, try to find a new quarterback? Maybe so they can make something happen with the Green Bay Packers and Barry George. I don't know, but I feel like Washington might be starting to look elsewhere. If Les Ben Vaughn can make a major turnaround this season, like he needs to, then it gets really interesting in Washington.
Yeah.
Especially in that division that is got some pretty good quarterbacks in it with Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, and Daniel Jones. They got to get something figured out.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, Ben Vaughn, he's just plain and simple. He has to take care of the football. I feel like, good things will happen for him if he figures, that piece out.
And let's talk about your favorite quarterback room in the NFL, and that's the Green Bay Packers. Is Cortez Walford gonna have a breakout year this year, Cam?
No, I don't think that at all. I think quite the opposite. I think this game was a fluke, and I really don't think he's going to do this again this season. So,
Wow.
I mean, I don't think he's had. I mean, he was a rookie last year, right? He threw more interceptions than touchdowns. They won 4 or 5 games. I'm not impressed. The guy. I mean, he had 1 good game. Good job. Good job.
You know what? I'm not gonna say he's gonna have a breakout year, but I do expect Cortez to have a better year for sure. And I mean, definitely started off well, almost a perfect quarterback rating against the Texans. 4 touchdowns and no picks. You can't get much better than that. I will say I don't expect him to be one of the top 5 guys in AMG, but I do think he will be improved significantly from last year. If he can continue to take care of the ball, then I think the Green Bay has a good team. They drafted Jason Nix to help that wide receiver core. That was the one part of their team that was really struggling. It was guys I couldn't even tell you who they were. But drafting Jason Nix in the first round, he had a big day to start his career. I mean, maybe that's what they needed to give Cortez a weapon, and maybe he's figured it out. I guess we'll have to just see how it goes this season. I mean, Texans don't have the best defense, so it's not a great measure, but we'll see as the season goes. Maybe Cortez has got it figured out. And then let's do a little early predictions. You know how I love my early predictions, Cam.
Yep.
We gotta predict who's going to be in the Super Bowl this year and who's going to win the Super Bowl. Because I mean, what else are we supposed to talk about? This is the main game. This is what everything is about. So who is going to be in the Super Bowl this year, Cam?
For me, y'all know I'm a big believer in Indianapolis. I picked them, uh, once the playoffs started to win it all. And even last year, I mean, I was really high on them. I know they came up a yard short in against Baltimore. I know they were hungry this past season, so I'm gonna say they repeat and take down the New York Giants, representing the NFC.
Wow, that is a bold claim to put the Giants back in the Super Bowl. Considering I've seen some early talk that the Eagles are the favorite to win that division. So you
I want to
think?
say that I want to say this about the Giants. I'm gonna say last year, they got right back to the NFC Championship. I know they had a tough loss there at the end, um, but it's just like you can never count them out. I mean, they went 4-5 last year, ended up winning the division when you thought they didn't have a shot. It's just like you just can't doubt this team, man. I feel like they're gonna get back there, and I think they're hungry, and I think they're gonna win the NFC Championship and represent in the Super Bowl.
I do have to ask you this question, Cam. There was talk around the league that the Giants are a fluke team. Thoughts on that? Obviously you don't agree if you're putting them in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, a fluke team. I feel like that really doesn't make a lot of sense, honestly.
That's just sources told me that's what
Those
people
are
around
just
the league were
whispers.
saying. Yeah,
Whispers.
whispers. You know how they are.
Okay.
Anyway, what's my Super Bowl prediction? One team I've already talked about today, and that is the Ravens. I think that offense turns into a machine that is unstoppable because you got Marquise Brown on one side, Tyreek Hill on one side, and Lamar Jackson throwing the ball and taking off if he needs to. That is just going to be so difficult to stop because I mean you got these corners that can cover those burners, but when there's two guys that can do that, and that two are the fastest guys in the league, I start to wonder how well are these defenses going to be able to contain that offense. So I think that's going to be enough to get the Ravens to the Super Bowl to face off against the Carolina Panthers and Deshaun Watson and Christian McCaffrey, who could possibly be an MVP candidate after that strong showing in Week 1. I think the Panthers getting Deshaun Watson in there last year, they almost made the playoffs, not quite. I think this year Deshaun's had a year in the system. It's their time to get all the way to the Super Bowl with him, and I think they're going to take down the Ravens in the Super Bowl. The Panthers and Christian McCaffrey will be your Season 8 Super Bowl champions. That is my early prediction. We'll see what happens. Of course, there are some other teams that have a shot. I mean, Tennessee Titans, they could be back in it this year. What do you think about the Titans, Cam? You think they're going to make the playoffs at least, right?
Yeah, they're gonna make the playoffs. But like you said about the Ravens, I just feel like this needs to be the year that they make a run because when you have a talented guy like Lamar Jackson, you need to be making. I mean, you need to be winning playoff games. I don't even think they made the playoffs last year, so that's kind of concerning. But now that they got Tyreek Hill, I mean, I think they're gonna have a better chance, and they better make it far. That's all I'm saying, because then you got to start questioning Lamar Jackson and that offense.
Yeah.
But for the Panthers, I'm a big Panther fan. I want to see them go deep. But I'm just thinking about the Giants and their playoff experience these past couple of years. Panthers haven't been there. The Giants have. I do think that's probably going to be our NFC Championship, but I don't see them getting past New York.
I will say this also about Lamar Jackson. You got to wonder if he can't produce this year like he did that year he won the MVP.
Yeah.
Is that contract just a massive bust for them? Because
it has to be. If they don't make the playoffs again, what's going on? Especially with Tyreek.
Because you could have said before, he didn't have a ton of weapons, but now Tyreek Hill, Marquise Brown, T. Higgins, Tony Pollard in the backfield with them. No excuse. Mark Andrews at tight end. No excuse for Lamar Jackson.
You better be in the playoffs.
Yeah, and an MVP candidate because with those weapons, there is no excuse not to be. So that's I think that's going to wrap it up for episode 7. And we'll just have to see what happens this year. Hopefully we'll see you in a week or so with some talk about what's happening in season 8.
What's happening around the league, yeah.
All right. See you then. Thanks for listening.
See ya.